Okay, so very recently a lot of people are complaining that the Vanu weapons lack a lot of variety, and other than the Orion, the H345, the Horizon, and I guess like the Blue Shift's like okay, there aren't that many decent guns, and of course the Ghost as well. And so for years we've been stuck with these meta guns, we don't really have any other options, and we were hoping that the gun update would give us more things to use. But ironically it nerfed the directive weapons, which definitely did not need it. They're trash relative to the other factions' weapons. But I am going to come at this from a slightly different angle. I think that Rel isn't stupid. I think he's actually a pretty smart guy. And I suspect that he is very cognizant of these facts, and I strongly suspect that in order to keep kind of Vanu in line, he's done a few different things. One of the things that he did, which was very smart of him, is instead of NSO being membership only, which meant that the NSO players generally were like 1.2 to 1.5 KD, and so they would always be playing Vanu and prop up Vanu, he made it free to play. And he made all of the people that have membership for NSO be able to go on whichever faction they want. And so that meant all the bad NSO players were playing on Vanu, and all the other ones could pick which faction they want to go on. Because of course if you play for membership, you're more likely to be a vet, you're more likely to have higher skill. That was super smart of Rel to do, to balance out the factions a bit more, and I applaud him for that because that's a smart move. Of course as well, the devs did need something shiny and new to add to the game, and new NSO vehicles, and hopefully bringing in new players to the game to try out the faction and play in that faction was a good move from a growth perspective as well. So it wasn't just a nerf Vanu, but certainly that was a secondary result. Now on top of this, we also have had a lot of changes in the weapon patch that we had a few weeks ago now. A lot of it did address the NC and TR weapons and bring them slightly more in line. It also did, in fairness, remove some advanced laser sights, compensators, and advanced forward grips from certain guns to bring them more in line with other guns. However, there's some weird discrepancies which I just can't explain. There are legitimate Vanu equivalents to the TR and NC weapons which are just flat out worse, and I'm not entirely sure what reasoning there could be other than the devs would like to make the Vanu guns slightly worse to encourage the good players to go to the other factions. There's also some super weird things as well, like the Orion for whatever reason and the Beetlejuice not having a compensator, but then if you look at the MSWR or the Anchor, they do. Now I think we also do need to approach the devs in good faith and really talk about why they could have done this, and that it isn't necessarily a bad thing. Obviously the game does need to be balanced, and it can't be that one faction's way stronger than the other two. That wouldn't be fair. And so it isn't like Rel and the dev team are doing this from a bad place, and I understand that. Of course as well, you have things like the NC and TR main battle tank, which arguably are very strong in group scenarios, whereas Mag Rider fares solo. And I would say that they're relatively equal, and they're just better at different things, although it is slightly frustrating to want to do armor ops on Vanu and have a Mag Rider to use, and that isn't that strong. Of course as well, for years the PPA has legitimately been worse than the Banshee or the Airhammer, and this has not been changed and I doubt ever will. The NC also have the Aegis shield, which is also very useful on maxes, and the TR has the ability which allows you to get better accuracy when you're like bolstered into the ground with a TR max, and that also is very strong. Whereas Vanu's is, from what I understand, worse than emergency repair, which everyone can use. Now to be fair, there are some weapons which are equivalent, like the TAR and the H345, even though before the TAR did, to be fair, have advanced laser and the Vanu equivalent didn't. That has been changed. But to me, again, the difference between an Orion and an MSWR and an Anchor isn't really as important to me as all of those weapons that I've never even heard of on Vanu because they're so trash I would never use them. In the same way, many other people wouldn't either. Whereas if you're on NC, or even if you're on TR to an extent, there are other guns that you can use. Now I have seen a lot of people get mad about this over the last few weeks, that Vanu's weapons are weaker. To me personally, the reason I haven't really mentioned it much and I've just kind of moved on, even though I was disappointed that a lot of the alternatives to the Orion, the alternatives to the H345, the alternatives to the Horizon have not been addressed, even though they didn't do that, which is what we were hoping for. I'm not that mad. The reason is simple. I play this game for the community, I play it for the MMO aspect, I play it because I like the tactics, and I like the macro stuff in Planetside. I like the community and being able to play with the same 1,000 people every day, rather than it just being, you know, every time I play a new game of CSGO, it's a different group of players. Whereas I might see Hoz kill me, you know, 50 times over the course of a few years, and that name sticks in your head. And I kind of like that, instead of it just being a random person. And again, I really like the community aspect of this game locally to my outfit. And also, when possible, we also personally have a few outfits that we talk to very regularly, and historically might even talk to several times a week, and that can change depending on what time of year it is, but it just is nice to have that. And so for that reason, if Vanu wins in the lot, if Vanu has stronger weapons, it's not the big massive deal to me. And I recommend that everyone else kind of thinks about this too. Why are you playing this game? Is it really for the gunplay? Do you really care if the other guy has a weapon that's 10% better? At the end of the day, if you have higher skill, you're going to beat him. So why not worry about what you can control, rather than worry about if something's unfair one way or the other. And that to me has always served me very well. Everyone always gets a bit upset if things aren't going the way that they want it to, or they deem things as, again, being unfair. But I think just shifting your mind away from that and focusing on the good parts, in general in life to be honest, always has more upside than focusing on the things you can't really have any control over. And at the same time, that doesn't take away from the very realistic reality that Vanu weapons, other than the meta ones, kind of suck right now, and there is no reason to not use the meta versions. And you are gimping yourself by using a lesser gun, and to be honest, maybe that's not such a bad thing. I also viewed OSHA and the Esamir changes in a similar light. I might not like containment sites the super bunch, I may not like that half the bases on Esamir are air to groundable for some reason. I may not like some of the OSHA design in terms of how open some of the bases are. But at the same time, I can't control that, and I'm not going to let the devs decide if I'm going to enjoy this game or not, when really Esamir and OSHA are only 2/5 of the map that you can play on. And even then, there are ways to play on OSHA if you just want to play infantry, where you still can do that. It might be a bit more difficult, and you might have to go to bases that have no tactical validity, but there's still options there if you want to use that as a way to play the game. And so I guess as the de facto Vanu YouTube dude, I just wanted to kind of say my little piece on this. I invite you all to leave your own comments and thoughts in the comment section. I do read all comments and I respond to any that I can add some value to. Have a great day. Until next time, I'm out. GG. Bye bye.